to Grid Live Pre-Race. NASCAR's at the fearsome Talladega Superspeedway. The playoffs, it's going to be really interesting to see how this race is going to shape up. Plus, brief recap of MotoGP. First race, the sprint race over in Japan, part Japanese Grand Prix weekend. Hello, I'm Joe Samdiego, hosting today's Grid Live Pre-Race episode. And a big thank you to our Patreon investors calling the show, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew, for investing in the Grid Network. Let's dive right down into it already with the NASCAR Cup Series. They're at Talladega Superspeedway, the Yellowwood 500. This is the big one for all the drivers in the round of 12 because none of them are locked into the next round of the playoffs. That surprise win from Ross Chastain denied any of the playoff drivers the chance to come here knowing they're locked into the round of 8. So all the drivers, and as you can see, we're not talking about a whole lot of points. 34 points to the good for William Byron, who is the lead driver of the NASCAR Cup Series playoff standings right now. 2 stages, 20 points. That could get raced down very quickly if he was to miss the stage points and have a bad day at Talladega Superspeedway. And if you're going to have a bad day at Talladega, it could be very brutal. We have 40 cars in the field, a full stack. So if you go out early, a single car spin because you got turned while pump drafting went wrong, and you're the first car out, you could be 40th place. That could be horrible day in the points for you. So a lot of drivers, I think, have to be on the edge when it comes to Talladega Superspeedway. One of those drivers, Kyle Larson, there's no success in the super speedways. As you'll see in the DraftKings, he is not the favorite to win. Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, Kyle Busch is even ahead of Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson, at this type of track, he just seems to be in the wrong place, the wrong time, get caught up in bad luck. But that doesn't mean you can't count him out, because one of the things with the super speedways, you know, if your car starts up, if you keep the car clean, the aerodynamics and everything, you got a good shot at getting the win. Pretty much all 40 cars, in my opinion, have contention to win this race. Even some of the backmarker teams, BJ McLeod, Cody Ware, they're going to be in the field. If the right cars go out the right time and you have some of the heavy hitters out of the race and they miss their crashes, if they don't sustain any damage, if they just put themselves in the right spot and just luck has it their way, they could find themselves in victory lane. A lot of drivers could find themselves into victory lane, whether they are just at the right place at the right time, luck, or making that right move, making it work, and getting that right push. Harrison Burton can tell you all about how important that push is towards the end. Let's talk about the 40-car field at Talladega this race weekend, because we know the manufacturers, that's going to be a big battle. The manufacturers want the drivers to work with each other. In the past, we saw this last time at Talladega, all the Toyotas were working well together until they all crashed into each other single file. Took quite a few of them, and they have the fewest cars. 8 Toyotas in the field. We have 14 Fords and 18 Chevrolets. For the Chevrolets, strength in numbers is the first thing that pops out. You have 18 of them. Even if 8 were to go away, you still have 10 Chevrolets. That's more than the Toyotas right now. Fords, one of the things with the Fords, I really like how Stewart-Haas Racing in the past has worked together at Talladega. Roger Penske Racing, those 3 Fords plus Harrison Burton, those 4 total, they could work really well together. Qualifying is going to be a big indicator of which manufacturer is going to be playing this game and trying to get the fastest cars towards the front. So qualifying, be on the watch out. If we see a bunch of Fords towards the front, they're all going to start working together. And when you look at the Fords in the playoffs, you got Blaney, you got Logano, you got Cindric, you got Chase Briscoe. Easily, you're going to see how with those 4 teams, the Ford teams, the 4 car teams of Stewart-Haas Racing, Penske plus the Wood brothers, that's 8 cars right there from the Ford camp. They are all going to be working with each other and giving a little bit more of a help towards the drivers in the playoffs, because you have Stewart-Haas Racing driver in the playoffs, you got Penske drivers in the playoffs. I think this is going to be a huge day for Ford, but they have to qualify up towards the front. That'll be the first indicator if this is Ford's approach to Talladega Superspeedway. Chevrolet's, the strength in numbers is there, but the Chevrolet drivers in the playoffs, they're Hendrick Chevrolets and Daniel Suarez. Suarez is below the cut line. I do not anticipate Chevrolet trying to make an effort we got to get Daniel Suarez above the cut line. You're going to be seeing more of the battle of, okay, we just need a Chevrolet driver to win. 1 to 4 Hendrick drivers. I don't think Chevrolet is going to be playing the game to the highest level like Ford. I anticipate Ford is going to be playing the higher manufacturer game of trying to work with each other. Chevrolets, they're going to want to work with each other, especially towards the end, but you're not going to see them try to unify and let's help Daniel Suarez. Let's help Alex Bowman, Kyle Larson, William Byron. Those drivers are good enough to get the win on their own. It's going to be really interesting qualifying, see which one of the 4 Hendrick drivers will be the fastest one. Because you're what the fastest Hendrick drivers in qualifying, I think you're going to have a lot more people want to push you towards the front. And then Toyota, they really have to work well together. They cannot have a repeat of the last time at Talladega, where all the Toyota drivers essentially working together single file just about took all of themselves out. John Hunter Nemechek, Bubba Wallace, Denny Hamlin, they were all out after that wreck. You cannot have those mistakes. The other thing you have to be careful for, pit road. We know we're going to have some green flag pit stops right here at Talladega. You need to have the 8 Toyotas all come in together, all service at the same time, and all leave together. You cannot get spread out. If the Fords were to just have 10 of their cars, 10 out of the 14 all come together, they have that strength in numbers over the Toyota. So Toyota has to be very careful when it comes to these pit stops under green flag conditions. And we know that is so tricky. You could have 4 Toyotas on the low lane, a couple Toyotas on the high lane, some in the middle, front, back. Toyota, let's see what they do in qualifying. If you see a bunch of Toyotas towards the front, they're going to try to do what Stewart-Haas Racing has done here before. They're going to want to get all of them up towards the front, maybe try to single file it and try to pull away. That's going to be so hard with this package that we have for the NASCAR Cup Series. I think the biggest thing they could try to do is just ride the bottom, try to get all the Toyotas in line prior to the green flag pit stops. Make those green flag pit stops, get going again, and just try to be single file, use that speed, because they got some good drivers that know how to win here at Talladega in the Toyota camp. But they got a big task ahead compared to the 14 Fords, the 18 Chevrolets, 40 cars in this race, the Yellowwood 500 at Talladega. Some of the past winners in the playoffs here at Talladega, the most recent one, Tyler Reddick in a Toyota. He could get the job done here. I'm also looking at Ryan Blaney. What did he do last year in the playoffs here at Talladega? He got the win. That gave him that championship drive. Chase Elliott, been a little while since he got a win here. He knows how to get it done. That'll be a huge win. Denny Hamlin, another Toyota driver. He could really use a win right now. Put everything behind it, especially this week with the announcement of the lawsuit 2311 and Front Row suing NASCAR over the charter agreements. The distraction of everything for Denny Hamlin. Just come in here to Talladega with a clear head, get that win. Your championship drive's going. The doubters, they'll be quiet for a while. Overall, Denny Hamlin, a good driver to get the win. And Joey Logano, he would love to get a win at Talladega. He knows how to get it done here. Can you imagine if Joey Logano started off round of 16 with a win? He didn't start the round of 12 with a win, but if he's the first driver in the round 12 to get a win, he is going to be hard to beat in the round of 8 and easily keep his championship streak of being the championship 4 on the even number years alive. 2024, the year for the 22, will be interesting to see what he could do. Let's take a look at some of the drivers outside the playoffs that have won here, though, because they're going to be a big influence as well, especially depending on which manufacturer they are. Starting with Chevrolet drivers Kyle Busch and Ross Chastain. Those 2 drivers, you got to watch for them. Kyle Busch has been running pretty good recently. He could have won at Kansas, just one of those unfortunate deals. I think that team is starting to come together. At the Superspeedway, Richard Childress Racing always seems to know how to bring some fast cars out here. I think this could be a great opportunity for Kyle Busch to be a spoiler and win at Talladega Superspeedway. Ross Chastain, He has the momentum from Kansas. He'll love to make it 2 in a row at Talladega. And let's throw in another Chevrolet driver that I believe has won, but is a big risk. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. The reason why I say Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is a big risk because we know he is very fast at the super speedway, but he is also very aggressive. At times, too aggressive, where we see him make moves, cause a crash, he ends up going or he ends up wrecked. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has the capability to win this race. That 47th car, keep it in one piece, be in the right place, right time towards the end, you could see him in victory lane. I truly believe it. The risky part, though, is if he just makes a move that's too aggressive, puts himself in a bad spot, tries to get out of it, it just seems he has that tendency to then cause a crash. It's just one of those deals. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., as you can see, at plus 4,000. If you're a betting man and you go with him, you're really risking it. High risk, but it could be big rewards with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. In the chat room, Adam, Talladega is a track that you gotta go at least once. It's incredible and it's impressive. The spectacle of seeing 40 cars at Talladega on Sunday coming to the green flag, completing those first few laps in one big pack, that is something you do not get really anywhere besides Daytona and lately Atlanta as well too. But the big thing is this: every driver has an opportunity to get the win here. Some of the wild card drivers I'm looking at that could potentially get a win: Austin Dillon, Kyle Busch's teammate. We know the story of Austin Dillon getting that win at Richmond. Could have been in the playoffs. He was removed from the playoffs because of how he got that win. They appealed it. No dice. He would love to get a win here and just make it where for the playoff drivers, they all have to enter the Charlotte Roval. Nobody secured in the round of 8. He would love to cause that kind of mayhem. He does not care about them. He just wants to go out there, get a win for his sponsor, get a win for that number 3 team, and prove all the naysayers out there that he could get the job done, whether it's the playoff season or not. Another driver I'm going to be watching, I think it's going to be a big wild card, Justin Haley. He is with Spire Motorsports. Spire Motorsports is showing speed. They're showing the capability to go out there, run in the top 10. Justin Haley, yes, he won at Daytona under circumstances of lightning and just being in the right spot at the right time under caution. He could easily, I think, handle the pressures of coming to the white flag and coming to the checker flag in contention for a win. That could be a huge day for Spire Motorsports if they get the win for Gamebridge, the sponsors that have put a lot of effort in Spire Motorsports, building it up, and what a statement that would make for Justin Haley in the second race with Spire to get a win. Don't count out Justin Haley. And Michael McDowell, we know he's going to Spire next year. One of the big things, he almost had this race won up until the trioval on the last lap. Michael McDowell, clearly a driver that could go out there, get the win at Talladega Superspeedway. And on a positive note, his tenure with Front Row Motorsports, Eric Jones, that 43 car, nothing really going on this year. A lot of people thought they could be one of the most improved teams since they switched over to Toyota. That has not happened. They did not make the playoffs. Eric Jones, he has come close to winning at Talladega at times, leading excellent turn 4 on the last lap, just to lose it in that trioval. I will not count out Eric Jones. He is another driver, wild card that could go out there and get a win. And this name, I did not think I would be talking about, but I have to talk about him. Anthony Alfredo. That's 62 Chevrolet. That Beard Motorsports team only comes out to Talladega, Daytona. They always seem to find themselves in a good spot towards the front if they're not caught up in bad crashes, bad luck. Anthony Alfredo, he will love to go out there, get a win. He just needs to survive the race. And I think after what we saw the 62 car do at Daytona, people are going to be following that car. If they see him working their way to the front, they're going to tell their drivers, follow that 62 car. Anthony Alfredo may lack the experience of a full-time Cup Series driver, but he's been around quite a bit. I think he's going to be a driver where in the final moments, if he's towards the front, he could get a push and get a win. And of course, we know getting a push is so important to winning at Talladega. Rookies have a hard time finding that push towards the front. But if you're behind Carson Hocevar, he's been fast. He's been bringing home good finishes. I am putting him on my list of wildcard drivers that could get the win at Talladega Superspeedway. Spire Motorsports has come alive. Watkins Glen, we saw Carson Hocevar, third place finish, very much overshadowed by the incredible finish we saw at Watkins Glen. He has been running fast. He was having a good run in Kansas until issues late in the race. If he could avoid the trouble that would comes with Talladega and he's towards the front, he could be the ultimate wild card race winner. I am seeing a lot of potential in Carson Hocevar this last few races. If next year's anything that we're seeing, more progress. We got Ronnie Chose coming to this team and Carson Hocevar more mature, coming to tracks second and third times in 2025. This is a driver that's going to be capable of winning. If he gets a win at Talladega this weekend, that is going to be a huge statement to everyone to watch out for him and Spire Motorsports. So those are some of my wildcard drivers. You may have noticed I have not talked much about Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Martin Truex Jr. These drivers, for some reason or another, they cannot find victory lane at the super speedways. One of the big things I just think they're aggressive driving. They put themselves in a bad spot when the big one happens and there's nowhere to go, or sometimes they're part of the big one. I think I would avoid them. However, I cannot count them out for a win. This race is so unpredictable. This race is really going to shake up the playoff standings. This race is one you cannot miss because this is just something where with Talladega, you just know the unpredictable, the big one is going to happen. But let's talk about that big one. It has not been the same big one that we see year after year after year. It's been coming smaller crashes taking out 6 to 7 cars. Then another crash, 6 to 7 cars gone. And what's become a bigger trend now? Coming to the checkered flag between turn 4 to the start finish line after the tri-oval, that is chaos. Blocking, cars bumping into each other. You just know you're going to be either crossing the finish line winning, you could be sideways, you could be upside down, you could be up against the wall. I think because of the safety advances of these cars, the drivers, when it comes to exiting turn 4 for the last time on Sunday, they're just going to keep the foot to the accelerator and go full speed regardless of what's going on ahead of them. They might lift off if they see they could lift off the throttle and get around a car that's spinning, but if they could get that win, they're not going to lift off. So that's the big thing I think every driver has to be concerned about, that last stretch. We saw in the truck series the crashes there. I anticipate we're going to see more in the Xfinity Series race. I will be not surprised if we see a bunch of cars crossing the finish line, taking the checker flag, spinning, crashing, upside down, backwards. This is Talladega. So overall, I think this is going to set up for a wild Yellowwood 500 at Talladega. I do anticipate you're going to see multiple cautions. This first stage might be perfect, but we've seen cautions because people trying to make that first pit stop, a little bump in the wrong spot, and they get sent spinning. That could easily bring the first caution. You then have the stage cautions. Second stage tends to get a little bit more aggressive. I think, again, entering and exiting pit road is going to be the more risky part. But as we get to the end of the second stage, I think that's where you're going to see more drivers get more aggressive, trying to get those stage points, especially if you're a driver in the playoffs that has lost positions because other drivers in the playoffs have gained positions through stage points in stage 1. And then the third stage, it's all out. One of the big keys you got to be mindful of, depending on when the cautions come out, you may want to make a pit stop and lose track position if you're close on fuel and we're looking at potential overtime. How many times have we had overtime finishes this year? How many times have teams been known to be going to overtime knowing they are pretty low on fuel? You do not want that, Talladega. Talladega, if you run out of gas on that start finish line during the pace lap, or even as you're taking the green flag on a green white checkered, you may not make it to the pit road. That is the longest track oval wise to run out of gas. So if I was a crew chief, if there's 10, 15 laps to go, track position might be great if you're in the top five. But if you're in sixth place, seventh place, 10th, I would even say up to 13th or 14th place, I'd be willing to make that pit stop, lose the track position, 4 fresh tires, and a full tank of gas. Especially if you know you have the fast car to get towards the front. Because let's be honest, this race, it could go those last green flag runs without incident, and you just have to pack. But very likely, you're going to have cautions. Yes, you're going to put yourself at risk of trying to work your way to the front and getting caught in trouble. But it could be worth it if we're in overtime, you're in the top five, and you know the other drivers ahead of you may not have enough fuel. So be sure to watch the fuel game at Talladega. See who makes a pit stops for topping off on fuel towards the end of the race. That could be a big factor in who wins this race. And just to recap it all again, 40 cars, full field of cars in this race, 18 Chevrolets, 14 Fords, 8 Toyotas. Some of the drivers in the class I have one here include Tyler Reddick, Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, and Joey Logano. Outside the playoffs, but past winners here at Talladega, Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain, Bubba Wallace, Brad Keselowski, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Some of the wild cards I'm looking at: Austin Dillon, Justin Haley, Michael McDowell, Eric Jones, Anthony Alfredo, and Carson Hocevar. Those are drivers I'm looking at potential winners. But in Talladega, as long as your car starts up, if you're on the lead lap at the start of the white flag and you're at the somewhere in that big pack, there's a very good chance you're going to get that win. You just got to avoid the big one. And most likely that's going to happen now between turns 4 and the start finish line on the last lap as everyone's coming to the checker flag to see who wins the NASCAR Cup Series. Yellowwood 500 at Talladega Superspeedway. Let's get into pick winner. Matthew Bro having a big lead. Look at the battle for second place and pick a winner. That is truly anybody's game right now. So be sure to comment with who you think is going to win the races we're going to be talking about. And let's start off with the obvious one we've been talking about all day. Talladega Superspeedway, the Yellowwood 500 on Sunday. When it comes to me, I like the Fords. I think they're going to have the best chance of winning because they're going to work the best together compared to the Chevrolet drivers. They have more than the Toyota drivers. Really, with 8 Toyota drivers, if Joe Gibbs Racing sees 4 of their cars go out in a crash, they're going to be in trouble. They're going to have to work with Chevrolet or try to work with Ford. So I'm going to go with a Ford driver, and I'm going to go with a driver I think a lot of people feel will be a surprise win, but it will not be a surprise win for me if this driver gets the win. I'm going with Chase Briscoe and the number 14 to win the Yellowwood 500 at Talladega Superspeedway. He is in the playoffs. He is motivated. He wants to bring as many wins to Stewart-Haas Racing before they close up shop at the end of the year. He won Darlington, the Southern 500. I feel he has his confidence in him. He just needs to have that car, that setup. Sometimes the team cannot get it done, but at Talladega, the setup is the least common factor when it comes to win. You just got to be in the right place, the right time, and I think Chase Briscoe is going to break through. Japanese Grand Prix for MotoGP, I'm going to go with the rider that I think is going to be continuing to lead the championship standings. That's going to be Jorge Martin. I think Jorge Martin is going to win a Japanese Grand Prix for MotoGP tomorrow. Brief recap of the sprint race at Twinning Motegi for the Japanese Grand Prix. Pecco Bagnaia, what a race. Started off, got the lead. He went on, took the lead. One of the big things, Marc Marquez had a controversial track limit penalty. More to follow about that. We're going to discuss more in detail on the wrap-up show. But essentially, Pecco Bagnaia, Bastianini, and Marc Marquez are all Ducati top three. Jorge Martin, fourth place finish. Big key, though, he's still your points leader at 15 points. So a lot happening at MotoGP. That championship is far from over. In the chat room, Adam pick a winner for MotoGP Japanese Grand Prix, Pecco Bagnaia, NASCAR at Talladega, Brad Keselowski. For me, when it comes to MotoGP, like I said before, I'm going to go with Jorge Martin. He's still the points leader right now, 15 points. I think he has the best opportunity to go out there, get the win, and really try to just put some distance between him and Pecco Bagnaia for these last handful of rounds in the 2024 MotoGP season. And of course, don't forget, we'll be on the air tomorrow, approximately 90 minutes following the Talladega Yellowwood 500 race. Be sure to comment in the chat room. We would love to hear your questions, reaction from Talladega, plus MotoGP Japanese Grand Prix race weekend recap and the grid ranking. Another big week for the grid ranking. Week 27 coming up, so we encourage you to follow us on social media at Grid Network TV across all social media platforms. And thank you for tuning in. Enjoy the races, and we'll see you next time.